Welcome back. Today we got a little project. Some of you might notice the fancy color scheme of that motor. It actually belongs to Matt from Look Creations. He's got a YouTube channel as well. I'll put a link down in the description. Apparently he's restoring a shaper, and he wants to run that motor on 230 volts with an inverter. Apparently the nameplate says 440 volts, 50 Hertz. It's a 2 horsepower motor, and we're going to look into it. The very first thing we're going to do is actually checking the insulation resistance, just to get an idea if it's actually worth to go any further. So it's quite heavy. The nameplate has some date on it. It says 1957, which probably lines up with the age of the shaper eventually. It's an old English motor, pretty heavy for the power it's got. But let's look inside what we got. So if the insulation test turns out to be okay, we're trying to find a star point inside. Hopefully there is one. And then we just switch it to delta, or actually wire it out to the there's only 3 wires coming out. That's what he told me. I think he sent me a picture as well. So there's no easy way to make that in delta. The gasket is knackered, pretty oily. Doesn't smell burnt, so it might be okay. So let's check the insulation. I've got a proper insulation tester, but just for a quick check, we're going to do it with a meter in the highest resistance range and just hoping it's going to be okay. I'm measuring nothing, which is good. So we got in excess of 20 mega ohms, which is good. Winding resistance looks good so far. So the numbers make sense for the power rating. So I think we take it apart and have a look inside. It's at least a good candidate. So it doesn't smell. The bearings are surprisingly quiet. I just turned it around and listened to it with a screwdriver, and they appear to be surprisingly quiet. The center of the shaft is chewed up a little bit. On these old motors, what you normally do, where are the wires going? To figure out on which side the wires going. They're going to the rear. Makes life a little bit easier. Normally the bolts are through bolts. Maybe not. They look like just screwed into the and on the rear you got the same bearing cover like that one. It's actually pinned, so you can't go the wrong way. You take them off. Sometimes the bolts are going through and holding a cap on the inner side as well, so that's probably the first thing we're going to check. Just wondering if that's a crack or just paint. No, it looks like paint. Alright, let's take that caps off at the rear. It's hard to get it on camera here. So we take the cap off here, and we see with the length of the bolt if they're actually going inside or not. Again, on the old style motors there is usually a long bolt and the similar cap with a hole on the inner side. Let's take it out and we'll come back. As expected, the bolts are pretty long, so there is the same thing on the inside. If you take a motor apart, always mark the rear and the front. So we just put two at the front, two at the rear, one at the front, so when you take the covers off you know where to go. With those it doesn't matter because we know the grease nipples are upwards, so they're coming out quite easy after cleaning them. And they're loose. Yeah, now you can feel the whole thing is moving here. Lots of paint on it. But at least there is some grease in it, which is good. Some towels here. Well, that grease is not the freshest anymore. So, but at least there is some grease in it. Looks a bit moist. So now that should come off. There you go. Grease looks a bit funny. We'll clean that. So now we should be able to get the rear end off, because the bearing slides out, because the inner washer is loose because we took it apart. So let me open those bolts, they might be a bit stuck because it's quite rusty here. So the good news is all the wires are visible, and I'm pretty sure if we dig a little bit we're gonna find a star point here. Windings look good. It's a truly hand wound motor, I can see that. And insulation looks okay, maybe a bit brittle in pieces, but essentially not too bad. I think it's serviceable, and that's the plate on the inside here, which basically is the counterpart of the other one. This is an internal cooled motor, so the air goes actually through the motor, and as we can see here, just need some gloves because this is really dirty. There is an air duct here which is full of gunk and God knows what, so that needs cleaning. I think that plate comes out here. Yeah, it comes out. So that's how it looks inside. Plenty of dirt and grease. So we give that a clean. But the bearings are in a remarkable good condition. I'm really surprised. I think we give them a bit of a clean and keep them. There is no reason for replacing them because the shape is going to be noisy anyway. So if that makes a little bit of a noise, it doesn't matter. They have no play. I can't feel any play. And if there is any, it's minimal. But the grease looks very strange. Looks like it, almost like there's water in the grease. But the motor is dry. I think the grease has protected it. Otherwise, at this age, normally they all have some resistance to ground. But looks good so far. So let's take the whole rotor assembly out, which is basically exactly the same, just on the opposite side. The 4 bolts out. I can't be bothered to take the bearing cap off for now. We're going to do that later. Just take the whole assembly out so we can get the rotor out. Give the whole thing a bit of a clean and see how we get on with our electrical work there. I just need to figure out where it is. The wires going out. That looks like. I even found an original piece of instruction paper in it, and it's talk about star and delta, so I wonder where the star point actually sits. We'll find it. No worries. Okay, so that's enough for today. Dinner time. We'll carry on tomorrow.